pressure. Every trader knows it. Every man who's lost it all has felt it. Some break under it. The rest, they get sharper. Today on The Edge, no politics. I repeat, no politics. No headlines. Just a story of a man who's been through the fire and rebuilt himself. Anthony Scaramucci, Wall Street veteran, hedge fund founder, survivor of the spotlight. This episode isn't about the White House. It's about what happens after the big fall. How do you come back when the world thinks you're done? This is The Edge, where we talk risk, reinvention, and what it takes to stay standing when everyone else burns. Anthony, welcome to The Edge. Let's talk about what really keeps you, Anthony, moving forward. What is it? Where is it? What is deep inside you? What is that edge inside Anthony Scaramucci?
Well, first of all, it's a very generous introduction, so I want to say thank you for that. And people probably don't know this, and maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I'm going to say it anyway. You're the first person that put me on television. I don't know if you remember that, but you were. You had a show, I think it was called Happy Hour, and it was on the Fox Business Network, and you invited me on more than once, and I've looked at videos of that. I was a nervous chap when I first got on, and so this is The Edge, and I think what I would want to tell your viewers and listeners, you got to go forward. You got to take risks. You got to be willing to fall on your face. And if you fall on your face a few times and you get up, guess what happens? You get some verbal and mental and physical calluses, Eric, as you know, because stuff has happened to you as well. And then you get up, it's like, well, I can do this. And then, you know, the next time you fall, you're like, okay, I got to prove again that I can get up. But I don't know anybody. And I would imagine all the people that you're interviewing have had failure adjoined to their success. Yourself, myself. I mean, I just taught a class at FSU over Zoom, and I listed the failures of Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. I listed the failures of Michael Dell, the failures. Okay. Elon Musk, the richest person on the earth, apparently, or him and Larry Ellison, on a knife's edge about to go bankrupt in 2008 during the financial crisis. So to me, when you talk about the edge is recognizing that you're going to get your ass kicked. And then how do you bring yourself back from it? No edge, having high expectations about life and thinking your life is going to go up in a straight line in a 45-degree angle, which happens to absolutely no one, Eric.
So true. So true. So, you know, you've built and rebuilt, as you pointed out. We all have, Anthony. And that is, you know, the people who we're talking to are the ones who brush themselves off after getting knocked down 100 times, and the 101st time they figure something out. So you've built and rebuilt more than once. Let's start right there. What first gave you that edge? Was it ambition? Was it fear? I'll tell you, for me, it was fear of being broke. I grew up broke. I never wanted to go back there. And so, yeah, I got my ass handed to me a bunch of times on the trading floor, a bunch of times. I can't tell you how many times I went home, locked the door on a Friday, put the shades down, and didn't want to talk to anyone because I just got my ass literally handed to me financially. I wasn't sure I was going to get back onto the trading floor on Monday, but you keep doing. So you keep doing it. What was it? Was it ambition? Was it fear or something else?
It was those things. There's certainly those things. Fear of failure. I grew up probably similar to you. I was in the middle class. I don't want to dishonor my dad by saying we weren't, but we were. We had a tight budget, and when there were recessions and he got his hours cut back, there was lots of anxiety in the house, which I probably externalized into making money or trying to go somewhere with my money and my ambition. But I really think for people like you and me, again, what is the edge? There's something about you. I knew this from the first day that I met you. When I shook hands with you at that bar, I think what the bar was like called Oscars or something like that. What was the name of that bar? The Bull and Bear bar or something like that.
It was the Bull and Bear
bar,
yeah,
the Waldorf Astoria.
Yep.
When I shook hands with you, you have a presence, okay? You obviously have charisma. You were one of the first television guys on Fast Money. You know, one of the panelists there. And they auditioned a lot of different people. And somebody saw in you what you're calling the edge. What is that edge? Communication, realism, authenticity. You know, when someone's talking to Eric Bolling, they feel like they know Eric Bolling. When someone's talking to Eric Bolling, they feel like Eric Bolling's going to tell them the truth. Now, it may not be right. You know, maybe they have halitosis. Eric Bolling's going to tell them. Maybe there's a booger in the nose. Eric Bolling's going to tell them. I'm using those as metaphors, but you get my point. And so what ends up happening, if you have that authenticity in your personality, it becomes magnetic. When I think of the word charisma, charisma is, derived from charm. It's derived from this, but it really means magnetism. People are willing to magnetize towards somebody. And usually those people have the traits of affability, but honesty and authenticity. And you come from that stock. I come from that stock. And then the other thing that happened to you after you got your ass kicked on the trading floor, you started winning. You started adapting. You started figuring out why you were getting your ass kicked so you would stop getting your ass kicked. And then what happens, and again, you want this to be raw and naked, so I'm going to be as naked as possible. It is addictive, Eric. When the trade goes well in the energy markets and you figured out what you're doing wrong, and then you layer on the second trade and then the third trade, and all of a sudden now you've built a system and you're gaining capital and collateral, and the guys like Vinny Viola and the guys like Mark Fisher are having this whole load of respect for you. What do you want to do? A competitive person like you, a competitive person like me, want to do more. We want to do more. But then somebody like you, which is why I think we have a lot in common, you're a versatile guy. So it wasn't enough for Eric Bolling. You had to go into TV. You had to go into television, and you had to go create that whole other environment for yourself and that whole other ecosystem. So to me, what I would tell people about an edge, whether it's a professional football player that's got to build a new career after professional football, despite the success, it could even be a Hall of Fame player, or somebody that, I'll give you so many different examples, but Goldman Sachs partners that retire, but they're 50 and they want to stay working. I can give you hundreds of different examples. The edge is from, I've done this before. I've won and lost, probably won more times than lost. And I like the action. I like being a part of it. I just want to say one last thing before you ask another question. 83 years old. I pray and hope that I have the energy of the 83-year-old Paul McCartney, who regaled 82,000 people on Saturday night, Eric, in the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. 83 years old. May you and I be blessed with his energy at that age. And so, again, the edge, doing something you love and not working every day, but doing the work of your passion. Those are the things that I think about every morning when I get up.
Interesting. Now, and I have to qualify the audience so people understand what Anthony has done. I met Anthony, as he points out, many, many years ago. Wall Street guy, doing very well for himself. At some point, Anthony, you decided that crypto was the place to be. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it wasn't a smooth, like as you point out, it wasn't a geometric move straight up. There were bumps. There were crashes. Tell us about the edge portion of
I'm sure this
that.
is a video. This is a video and audio podcast, right? I'm sure it is.
That's video. We just saw your
this
shorts.
is
By the way.
video.
You look handsome in those shorts.
And I just want to show you, this is a bobblehead that was made for me by the Jackass team at Skybridge. Okay, so we were getting destroyed in crypto. I bought the Bitcoin at 16. It went to 69,000. Clients thought we were geniuses, and then it went from 69,000 to 16. And my clients thought I was a dummy, and a lot of clients fired me. And the New York Post put this rendition of me. I looked like Tyrion Lannister sinking in the SS Mooch. You could see it there. And I'm sinking in the boat, going down, and people were writing my financial obituary. But Eric, I saw something, and this is where you talk about an edge, where you got to put your balls on the line. Or you talk about your personality, something you would have done in the oil pit. I saw something fundamentally changing, and I knew eventually the regulation would catch up with the technology. Because remember, Uber, the car drive ride-sharing company, no one wanted it. No official, no governmental person wanted it, but it was great technology and the people wanted it. And that's how I felt about Bitcoin and elements of the blockchain. So I stayed in it. And I remember telling my wife, I said, look, I mean, we've got enough money. We're not going to be the richest, but I think I'm right about this. And if I have to shut down the business over it, I'm willing to do that. And
did you ever question yourself,
on
Anthony? Yeah,
What's
no,
that?
no, you've crushed it, and as we speak, as we're, Bitcoin and other cryptos are making all-time highs. You're killing it. You're doing. But did you ever question? Did the naysayers, did the haters ever get inside your head and you start questioning your own? Am I really doing this, or
Okay,
is this too much risk?
so let's not bullshit anybody, Eric. We tell ourselves what other people think about us is none of our business. We tell ourselves don't look at the comments on social media. We tell ourselves stay in our lane, but it's impossible because we're social organisms. We're human beings, so we can't do that. So what ends up happening is some of that dials into our system. This is one of the reasons why I think social media is so dangerous for these young people because of all the cyberbullying. But yes, I like you have had those sheet covering days where I've come out of a situation and said, "Oh my God, this is a disaster. How am I going to build up from this?" I lost $1 billion of capital on withdrawals from Skybridge. I just want everybody to understand that. So in other words, the fund went down. The papers wrote that I was an imbecile, and $1 billion that took me 20 years to manifest disappeared from the fund. Now, those people, I don't know, maybe they made the money that we've made in Bitcoin. I don't know, maybe, but we went 4-1 since those withdrawals. So I just made a decision, and it could have been a mistake, by the way, but I just made a decision that I was hanging in there no matter what. I looked at the landscape and I said, history rhymes. The vectors are here where this is the right technology, which will eventually line up with regulation. And hopefully the next move on this regulation, it'll be bipartisan. But that was the decision making, sir. And let me tell you something.
Was there a Bitcoin price, Anthony, that you were going to bail? Like, if you're
No,
buying
no,
at 17, you got up to 69, you're still buying,
no,
assume.
no, I'm a long-term holder. I've held it for 5 years. Expect to hold it for the next 5 years. But let me tell you something, Eric. I wear a mouth brace now due to teeth grinding. Okay, so again, I don't want to bullshit people
No, this is
and
good.
pretend.
This
What's
is
that?
good. This is good. This is
No, but I'm
what's
telling
all.
you the
No,
truth.
but people need to understand.
I
It's
went
not
to-
just Anthony is all of a sudden making 100, 200, 300, $500 million. There is teeth grinding. There is your stomach
Teeth grinding.
churning at night. There is you watch a market trade through the night. You wake up in the middle of the night in the cold. So how many nights have you had where you woke up completely scared to shitless because your position just went to zero? Because
Emotionally anxious, Eric. Emotionally anxious. Let me tell you something. Okay, I had super pain in my left ear. I'm like, what the hell is that? I went to the ear, nose, and throat guy. He's looking in there. He's like, there's nothing. Your eardrum's perfect. What the hell's wrong with you? I don't know. Something's wrong. It's parasympathetic. What are you? You have a nervous breakdown? I don't think so. Then I went to the dentist. And the dentist said, okay, you got to get a mouth brace because you're grinding your back molars. And the dentist says to me, do you have ear pain? I said, yeah, I got ear pain. My left ear is killing me. And they fitted me for a mouth brace. When I go to bed at night, I look like I'm ready to play hockey for like the New York Rangers. Like I get the mouth brace in.
sexy motherfucker, as they say.
Okay,
You sexy motherfucker.
but Eric, I'm telling you the truth so that your people can hear all the vagaries. I hear people. I've read some billionaire biographies. They go up into the right and their lives are perfect. It's not what happens. And they're trying to sanitize their history. I don't want to do that on the edge. I want to tell you the good, bad, and ugly that's happened to me, the self-doubt, the self-consciousness. I've walked into rooms after being fired from the White House. I've walked into rooms after being crushed in the paper related to my performance. I've walked into rooms where people are snickering at me and they're whispering to each other, oh, yeah, there's the jerk off that, lost all the money in Bitcoin. And I'm sitting there, awkwardly smiling and trying to get through my day. So let's not sugarcoat things for people. If you want to be in the game of taking risk, you have to stay in the game of taking risk, because if you take risk and you get hit, well, guess what? The next risk you take, you may pay off. So you got to stay in the game and make the bet that your guesstimates, your calculated risks, one or two of them will pay off. And you know this better than anybody because you're a market person. You know this better than anybody. You stay in the game. You don't allow yourself to get knocked out of the game.
There was a one pivotal moment that you remember? I can name two or three, once in baseball, a couple times in Wall Street, and certainly once on television. Is there one moment where it could have gone either way? And maybe it did go sideways for you, but tell us that one moment that sticks in your mind.
Well, there's a couple moments. I mean, the first job I had, I was in investment banking at Goldman, and I sucked at that job. I was able to convince people to hire me, and it worked out for me in the beginning, but then they went into a recession. Since I wasn't really that good at the job, they fired me. So there I was, 27 years old, lots of school debt, fired from my first job, having graduated from Harvard Law School. It was very demoralizing, really impacted my self-esteem. And then I got a new job at Goldman, which was even funnier that happened. But the secondary job, Eric, was the one where I was in asset management and sort of wealth management, and things did well. We were also in a bull market. You know this. You have to stay humble. Don't confuse brains with a bull market, which we were living in. And so I wrote down in my diary after my firing, I said, okay, I have to start my own business so I can control my own destiny, so that if someone's going to fire me, it'd have to be 100 clients or 1,000 clients or whatever. And so I wrote in my book, if I could make enough money to pay off my school debt and I would start my new business debt free, I would do that. And so you remember Goldman, the fiscal year ended in December. November 30th was the end of the year. I paid off the debt on Memorial Day weekend, 1996. I left on December 1st, the end of Goldman's year, to start my business. And, thankfully, Eric, I was in a bull market. You remember the 90s, 96, 97, 98. These were great years. And I probably made a ton of mistakes, but a rising market tide lifted the boat of the business that we started. I sold it to Neuberger Berman. Neuberger got bought by Lehman. Those were great years for me. And then I went to Dick Fold, who was the CEO of Lehman, Michael Dell, the computer entrepreneur, and a few others. I want to start another business. I formed Skybridge. But you know why I ended up on your television set? Another disaster. We were getting killed in the global financial crisis. The first time I did television was the 17th of March, 2009. You were hosting the show. And why did I come on the show? I wanted to talk about the SALT conference, which I was hosting in May of 2009, because I wanted to let people know that we're still in business. Eric Bowen's going to give me an opportunity to give my opinion about why people shouldn't fire us and why the future could be bright post-crisis, and how our conference business was going to be a good idea to come to, and so on and so forth. And we survived it. And so what is the edge? Sometimes the edge is getting your ass up out of bed and going forward. The edge is what Eric is describing. He's gotten his ass kicked in the oil pit. He's got the cover over his head, but he's got to take the cover off his head and get up and go forward. You got to go forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I could name hundreds of different things that I've done.
What is the driving motivation for a guy like Anthony Scaramucci? I guess a lot of very wealthy people will have a similar answer to that. Is it the money? Because I can tell you at some point the money,
fear of poverty, the anxiety of being poor that you referenced. I have that anxiety.
How about being right? It feels good to be right too?
Well, it feels good to be right, but I've been humbled by life. I've been humbled by markets. So some of the rightness is, getting something right. And, I don't want to ascribe too much of this. Some of it is, providence, that, and I know that. And so I want to be humbled by the things that I've gotten right. But I think it's more than that. I think it's what I saw in McCartney in Las Vegas on Saturday night. And that is, I am vital doing something I'm passionate about. And I really believe this. I think Warren Buffett is alive today because he absolutely loves what he's doing. He's 95 years young. 95 years young. And I think when I see McCartney at age 83, he's working, Eric. You could have retired. I could have retired, and I could have lived my same lifestyle. But now you're not in the flow. You're not in the process. And you're not getting up with some level of vim and vigor and purpose. I think that's part of it. And I think people should understand that. And if I'm giving the money away or I'm helping my family members with the money, God bless. But I want to be part of the process. I don't want to be knocked out of the game, because I think when that happens, other parts of your brain and body shut down. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, there's that's a motivation. It's clear there. And the reason why I brought that up is you're right, Anthony. I did very, very well on Wall Street after a really bumpy, rocky start. I am doing very well, but the money wasn't fulfilling anymore. I had like you said, Anthony Scaramucci has plenty of money to live for the rest of his life if he walked away, but it was no longer that. And when you're a trader on the trading floor, that's all it is. You show up every day. It's like a big casino. You show up every day. It's your money. You walk. You press a button at the end of the day. How much did I make or lose? Maybe I lost $200,000. Maybe I made $200,000. Maybe I lost. I was looking at a $3 million loss one day. My own money. It wasn't working for anyone.
Devastating.
And you learn how to deal with it. You learn that the bumps are going to come, and you learn to ride the winners. But at some point, Anthony, the payoff, the emotional payoff from making money, wasn't there anymore. It was diminishing returns for me.
Well, that's
and
why you went into TV.
Right, and TV took over for that whatever I was lacking or whatever I was trying to satisfy inside. It wasn't the money anymore. Now it was the, I guess, being able to talk to people and having people hear what you have to say. And that's a big motivator for me personally. But
that's a gift that you have. Okay. So if someone said to me, tell me a little bit about Eric Bolling, I would say, well, this guy's a masterful entrepreneur. He's got incredible charisma and energy, and he's good to people. And the other thing about Eric Bolling, at the end of the day, you're a teacher, which is why you have this podcast. At the end of the day, you're getting your psychic and your kinetic energy, because if someone's listening to this podcast and they're getting up faster in the morning, or they're doing extra push-ups, or they're eating better, or they're like, okay, these guys have got me revved up and they've got my mindset in the right place to attack the day, Eric Bolling feels good about himself. You know, something happened to me the other day. It was just such a tiny thing, but I know that you would appreciate this. Somebody emailed me a thing that they were writing. And I looked at it. They said, could you please look at it, review it? And I looked at it and I corrected some things. At least I thought I made the language a little bit cleaner. I sent it back to the person. And the person said to me, thank you. This has made the thing materially better. And it's a weird thing. It was 5 paragraphs, but it made me feel great, Eric. You know, that's you.
Well, you like to teach too. You said you're teaching a class at FAU.
That's Jackie Robinson. What did Jackie Robinson say? When you go into the rotunda at Citi Field, the best line ever from Jackie, we're at our best when we're helping others. So you in your mind, because you and I think very similarly, I got to help others. What am I going to do first? I'm going to make enough money to protect the people that have my DNA. Okay, but I want to help others. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go into broadcast journalism, broadcast punditry, broadcast motivation, because I want people to be externally stimulated by my success arc, but also my failures and also my shortcomings.
But here's what I want to get into. Anthony Scaramucci.
They don't feel bad about themselves. What's that?
Anthony Scaramucci. This is what I want to get into right here. You're tapping into. So you have obviously traders that come to work for you. They send you a resume. They come. When you have a young guy, a young gun, how you probably don't have to look at their history or their book. You can probably read whether they're going to be a good trader or not right away, right? How long does it take?
Well, I mean, you know, it's not scientific, as we both know. I guess what I would say is there's an X factor. I think that the people that have worked for me that have done the best are the most honest. So meaning, if I put somebody on the desk, I give them a blotter and I give them a P&L, and they're losing money and they're coming to me immediately and they're telling me, okay, I'm down XYZ. Here's what happened. This happened, that happened. I'm looking at the guy and say, this guy has high integrity. You know, lead with the bad news first. You know, I had a very bad real estate deal, went bad for me and my clients. There was a lot of different ways we could have handled it. You know how we handled it? Boom. Here's all the information. Here's everything that we did right and wrong. Boom. So to me, one of the first things is integrity. The second thing about the risk taking, it's sort of like self-confidence. You want to be self-confident and have high self-esteem, but you don't want it to cross the border into arrogance.
Right.
You don't want that, right? Because if that starts to happen, forget about it, right? The people, they get overconfident. They start to believe their own bullshit. You know, when a trader is looking at the market and they're telling me that the market's wrong and they're right, well, you know what? They better have a really good story, Eric, because you know and I know that there may be madness in
Nobody
crowds.
is bigger
Right,
than the
right,
market.
exactly. There may be madness in crowds, but there's also a lot of wisdom in crowds. So that would be a turnoff for somebody like me. And so to me, it's humble. It's at the intersection of humble, self-awareness, and self-confidence that never strays over into arrogance.
What about never marry a position too? That's what
Never marry.
date your positions. Never marry
Okay.
your positions.
Okay. However, I agree with you on a trading perspective, but I have accepted Buffett's aphorisms about owning very high quality assets for long periods of time. Even Peter Lynch said that his biggest mistake was selling winners too soon. And by the way, even Buffett lets go assets. He let go a large portion of Apple, some of his bank stocks, etc.
On the way to a $1.1 trillion valuation.
Yes, yes,
So, right.
exactly. So I'm not. There's no rule that's a permanent rule, but I'm a long-term holder of Bitcoin. I see that asset trading, to gold. It could get to gold. I think it could.
Valuation. So what
Yeah.
number is that? What?
Yeah, so gold's at a $26 trillion valuation now. Bitcoin's at about a 2.4 on current market prices. So,
And
and
since
again, I'm not saying
it's a
that's
stagnant number, you can't make more. So you're talking about tenfold, a tenfold. So
yeah. I'm
a
not
million.
again. I'm not
a
saying that's
million
going to happen.
plus.
I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. But if you said to me in 10 years, because you and I will be in our 70s in 10 years, the younger kids have accepted Bitcoin and they see it as a store of value. Our generation is mixed on it. I'm for it. You like it, because you're more neurally plastic, you're more adaptive. But it's really for the younger generation. I'm just saying in 10 years, those market participants will see it as digital gold. And so let's say it just gets to half of the valuation of gold. And again, on those stagnant numbers, that's 10 trillion. So it's a 5x in 10 years. In my opinion, is it volatile? Could it trade off? Sure, it could trade off. But I don't, I'm not going to sit here, Eric, and be supercilious or arrogant with you. I've been humbled by life. I've been humbled by markets, and I'm not going to tell you, oh, I have it all figured out and I have the keys to the car. I have the answers to the final exam. I don't. You can interview me 5 years from now, 3 years from now. I say, look, I've changed my opinion. Here's why. When the facts change, very smart people change their decision making and change their views.
You've reinvented. You were Wall Street straight up, Goldman Sachs. You went into hedge fund. You moved into crypto. You do the SALT conferences. Is there another reinvention for Anthony Scaramucci, or are you just going to ride this one into the sunset?
It's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that yet. There might be some AI component to this for us at Skybridge. We're looking at a couple of things, and I've got a couple of young people that I'm trying to mentor at Skybridge that are actually now business partners of mine, where there might be a sleeve for AI at Skybridge, where you could be interviewing me years from now, and we've got an AI component to the crypto. But I was in the typewriter business, Eric. Okay, remember what the business I was in? I was in a fund of funds, which is very favorable, very fanciful 20 years ago. But now most people can go direct investment into the funds. They can either do it as a retail investor at a wirehouse because they'll aggregate this stuff and then put it to the manager. They don't have to come through a fund of funds anymore. So I had to shift a typewriter business. We're still selling some typewriters in the United States, but not like we used to in the 1950s, Eric. And so I had to change that business into a digital asset business to embrace the digital economy. And that took balls. And by the way,
I know you're using typewriter as a metaphor here, but in actuality, Michael Bloomberg, one of the most wealthy, one of the most successful people in the world, he was selling shoes on Wall Street before he realized that traders needed a Bloomberg terminal to find out what the hell's going on around the world.
And so, but to me, that's the adaptation. See, he's a brilliant entrepreneur. He started here and he moved there. And by the way, since we're talking about success and failure, you may remember this about Michael's story. He needed money from Merrill Lynch. His first data system wasn't working properly, his first operating system. He went to Merrill Lynch, sold him 12% of the company, And you may remember this, Eric, he bought it back during the financial crisis. Do you remember that?
I don't, but it sounds like
Yeah.
a typical winner move where you
Yeah,
you
no, but
extend
he said, I
yourself
need the
and then
money.
yeah.
I got to retool. Merrill Lynch bought it. And then Merrill Lynch was dying in the financial crisis. He bought it back from them. He was mayor at the time. I mean, he still had a light touch into the business. But my point that I'm making is that everybody goes through tribulations. Everybody. If you're not going through tribulations, your heartbeat is not moving with enough variability. You're not in the game. If you're listening to The Edge and you're listening to Eric Bolling, you're listening for a reason. You want to jump off the ledge. And that's what entrepreneurs do. You know, Fred Smith had a great line. He said, if I knew how hard it was to start FedEx, I probably wouldn't have started it. I always laugh at that line, the late, great Fred Smith. But another line about entrepreneurs, you're jumping off the cliff and you're trying to build the airplane as you're descending back to earth. And that's what you have to think like. That's what you have to do. And you have to believe.
That's
you have
a
to believe.
great analogy.
No, but you
You
got to
jump
believe
off
in
the cliff
yourself.
and you're rebuilding the airplane
Yeah,
on the way
you're
down.
making the airplane as you're heading down to earth. Okay. And you got to have that insatiable drive, energy. I'm going to make the additional call. I'm going to make the additional solicitation. I'm going to push myself. Okay, are we right on this? We're getting killed in Bitcoin right now. Are we right on this? And if we really do believe we're right, why are we going to hold this? And then we made the decision, and then it could change. I'm not saying it couldn't. Buffett says that his holding period is forever. No one's holding period is forever, especially in a temporal world like planet Earth. But you get where I'm coming from.
I do. Anthony, great discussion. Appreciate your time, and you really nailed the edge. I mean, you just crushed it. What a great example. Anthony Scaramucci, everyone. Thank you so much.
You and I are more similar than most people would think at first glance. I think we're playing off the same sheet music, Eric.
But see, and this is what we're doing here, Anthony. Is I think there is commonality. Like I had a couple of weeks ago, I had Gil Deser, who was a Miami real estate developer.
Yeah.
The Porsche building and the Bentley building. He was telling us a story. He was down 400.
He's still wearing the ponytail, Gil.
Yep. He was down he was owed the banks $470 million, $500 million. Nowhere to go. People were pulling, as you pointed out, when they're taking their capital out. They were canceling. They were walking away from homes that they bought. He had nowhere to go, and he said he just stuck with it. He renegotiated, and Brazil came through for him. And there's a commonality of when you know you're doing something right, you believe in it, even when it looks like you're going to face plant, and you do face plant, you get back up, and if you're right from the beginning, it's going to work out. It's just going to find a way to work out, and it is the commonality of people developing what the edge is and how to manage the edge, so to speak.
I mean, look, it's an awesome idea, and I wish you a lot of luck on it. If you don't mind, I'm going to do some brainstorming with you and your producers. I'm going to try to come up with some high-profile guys that should come on the edge.
Love it. Love it. Anthony, love it.
And I mean, you want women on the edge too, or is this a man's thing?
It's not. It's geared towards men, but the women who support it, and maybe women who've found the edge for themselves, of course.
No, I got it. All right, but I've got a couple of guys in mind, that I think you'd love. I mean, I don't know if you can get Jensen, but if you can get Jensen from NVIDIA. I don't know him super well, but because he's fucking great at this.
Yeah.
And Jensen, because I saw him at a JP Morgan conference, and I was like, this fucking guy gets it. I mean, he was like in a fucking Denny's, developing fucking chips for like games that were like fucking Coleco. They were like Coleco games. And now he's making chips that are going to innovate the whole world of AI. I mean, this guy gets it better than anybody, and he's our age. He's a contemporary of ours. That's
great. We'll do it. We'll get him. We'll get these folks on, and really appreciate your time, Anthony Scaramucci.
All right. God bless, brother.
You too, man. You too. Crush it.
Thank you.
Well, before we wrap, take a look at this. This is a chart of the edge. You can see that chart, the bigger one, the edge versus the average new YouTube show. We've built this in just a few weeks, less than a month, in fact. No politics, no clickbait, just performance, risk, and resilience. This is a no politics zone. And by the way, we're growing at 5 times the average YouTube show, 5 times in both subscribers and views, thanks to you. We talk about mindset. We talk about markets and what it takes to stay sharp in a world that keeps trying to take us down. If that's your world, hit subscribe right now and join us. Or I'll tell you what, look at this QR code, open your phone, aim the camera at the QR code, little yellow line, just press it, and you'll be subscribed. You're not subscribing for anything else, just The Edge. You'll get all The Edge content because The Edge isn't just a show, it's a way of life.